There's a reason the old Viking homes outlasted the storms, the frost, and even time itself. When archaeologists dug into their Arctic settlements, they didn't just find ruins. They found engineering so effective it made modern scientists scratch their heads. Homes that warmed themselves, walls that breathed, heat without fuel, comfort without machines. And here's the twist. By the mid-1900s, parts of this ancient design were classified and banned from public teaching. Why? Because it worked too well. Stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed to Prepper's Survival Blueprint, because today we're unpacking a piece of history that could change how you think about shelter, energy and survival. The Viking longhouses of Greenland and Iceland were built in some of the harshest environments on Earth, lands where modern concrete cracks and metal freezes. Yet those turf and stone homes stood for centuries. They didn't just survive the cold, they mastered it. When early 1900s engineers tried to copy them for new Arctic towns, they failed miserably. The replicas looked right but didn't work. The original Viking structures stayed warm inside even when the air outside dropped below -20. And the strangest part? They used almost no firewood. The secret was hidden in their design. A self-balancing system of airflow, stone and living earth that created what scientists today call passive thermal convection. Warm air rose from the central hearth, circulated silently through layers in the walls, and pulled in just enough cool air from the ground to keep everything stable. No drafts, no dampness, no mould, just quiet, natural heat, year-round. Tests on reconstructed Viking homes found that even in extreme cold, the interiors stayed around 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. With only a small fire burning, families could sleep through an Arctic night without freezing. That's not just clever, it's genius-level survival architecture. To understand their secret, you got to think like a Viking engineer. They didn't build against nature. They built with it. Every longhouse started with a deep base of stone. That stone acted as both drainage and a heat battery, absorbing warmth from the central fire during the day and slowly releasing it at night. On top of this, they layered thick turf blocks, living bricks of soil and grass cut into neat squares. Each block trapped pockets of air, giving natural insulation that was flexible, breathable, and long-lasting. But the real trick lay between those layers. The Vikings, slid in sheets of dried seaweed or straw, creating these tiny, microscopic air channels. Those channels formed a slow, steady airflow inside the walls, a natural ventilation system that kept moisture out and warmth in. Above that came a low, curved roof, built from bent wood or whalebone, then packed with moss and turf. It wasn't pretty by modern standards, but honestly, it worked like a miracle. The weight of the roof stabilized temperatures, reduced noise from the wind, and completed a self-regulating thermal cycle. This was a home that moved, breathed, and adapted to its environment, like a living organism. In the 1930s and 1940s, Scandinavian scientists revisited Viking construction to design Arctic research bases and military shelters. What they discovered shocked them. Using old turf layer methods, they built experimental stations that required almost no external heating. The air stayed clean, dry and perfectly warm, all without fans, electricity or oil. During wartime fuel shortages, this discovery caught the attention of defense departments. A building that could heat itself with no fuel was a game-changer. But as reports rolled in showing Viking-style turf airflow outperforming military barracks, the information was quietly buried. Why? Because an energy-independent home was bad for business. Coal, oil and heating industries couldn't profit from people who didn't need them. So the technique was labelled unreliable, and the research disappeared into classified civil defence archives. A few scientists protested, but the message was clear. Some knowledge was too efficient to share. What makes the Viking system so mind-blowing is that it wasn't about insulation or sealing off the cold. It was about balance. You know, modern buildings trap air and depend on heaters to keep it warm. But the Vikings let air move naturally, creating a cycle that maintained equilibrium. Their homes never suffocated. The air circulated just enough to stay breathable and prevent moisture build-up. The walls acted like living lungs, constantly exchanging air, heat and energy. It wasn't magic. It was deep observation. They watched how snow packed, how wind moved through the land, and how earth held warmth. That's why these homes didn't creak, rot, or freeze. They were tuned to the rhythm of the Arctic itself. If you're serious about prepping or off-grid living, you can adapt the same Viking logic to modern shelters. Start by working with the ground, not against it. Even building a third of your structure below ground uses the Earth's steady temperature as natural insulation. Next, use layers that breathe. You don't need ancient turf. Soil, straw and sand, arranged in alternating directions, can replicate the same airflow and insulation properties. The goal isn't to trap heat, it's to balance it. A heavy roof helps too. Dense materials hold warmth longer and release it slowly, preventing those temperature swings that drain energy. And don't forget airflow. Add small vents low on the wall and one near the top. That's how you create silent, continuous convection that keeps your space fresh without fans or power. Test it with smoke. If the smoke rises smoothly and disappears without hanging around, you've nailed the flow. Once that natural balance is set, the system maintains itself. So, this design isn't just for living spaces. In fact, it works for root cellars, underground workshops and animal shelters too. Basically, anything that needs a stable temperature and moisture balance can benefit from the same Viking principles. The Vikings didn't write manuals or blueprints. Their knowledge was passed through generations, hands-on, practical, proven through survival. When modern society dismissed it as primitive, we didn't just lose a technique. We lost a philosophy. Today, As energy prices rise and environmental stress grows, the old Viking way feels like the future. A home that heats itself, breathes naturally, and needs almost nothing from the outside world. That's true independence. That's survival engineering at its purest. And maybe that's exactly why it was hidden. Because a world that doesn't depend on fuel is a world that doesn't bow to industry. So, if you're serious about learning survival that actually works, subscribe to Prepper's Survival Blueprint and share this video. The Vikings may be gone, but their knowledge isn't. It's waiting, buried in the frost, in the soil, in the silence of homes that once breathed warmth into the coldest places on Earth.